Now, I'm really excited to kick off our next session. We're going to talk all about Google Analytics 4, one of the hottest items in the industry right now. And for this, I'd like to welcome Shweta Kulshreshtha from Google. Shweta is a subject matter expert in Google Analytics, privacy, and attribution, and is deeply passionate about solving real-world business problems with data. She brings expertise and simplification to help retail advertisers navigate the complicated marketing tech landscape. I am also pleased to welcome my colleague, Chinonso Emma-Ebere, a senior lead digital analytics consultant at InfoTrust and works with me here in Cincinnati. So thank you both so much. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. Really excited to be here and really excited to talk to you about GA4. Sorry, I'm experiencing a slight technical difficulty. Give me a second. I'm sorry about that. Awesome. So we are ready to rock and roll now. If you can move to the... Okay, I'm going to jump straight into it. Our industry has gone through a tremendous amount of change in the last few years. A lot of this change can be attributed to rising demands of users asking for more transparency and control over the data that is collected on them, also known as user privacy. And this led to two monumental changes in the industry. The first one being around restrictions that browsers imposed on the data that's collected traditionally through cookies, and the other was a rise in the legal regulations that essentially put consent at the heart of all user measurement. So how is a retailer supposed to prepare for a future with all of these changes in mind? The first thing that you need to do is get comfortable with the idea that there's going to be less data, and get comfortable with the idea that you will have to tap into new solutions like machine learning and modeling to be able to mitigate for gaps like this. The second guiding principle here, if I may, is to trust the data that you own. The first party data, which is the user data that you have, which is consented, is king. Aggregate, consolidate all the insights that you have in order to be able to inform your marketing and activate on it. As a retailer, you know best who is the user that is interested in your business and who is more likely to buy. So use that insight and power your marketing. If we go to the next slide, keeping these principles in mind, this is what GA4 is developing towards. As there's an increasing scarcity of cookies in the industry, GA4 will offer solutions that help you sustain your marketing in a privacy durable way. When we think about marketing, there are some key questions that we are always looking to answer. How many conversions did I get? What can I leverage the insights that my users are sending me to activate on audiences and to gain holistic insight into the user journey? Google Analytics 4 offers solutions that help mitigate for potential gaps across all of these areas, and not just gaps, but also offers intelligent solutions that you can tap into to activate on your marketing. Some of these solutions include the new user ID measurement tool, which allows you to pass your own first-party identifier, which will solve across all three areas. There are also exciting future launches where we will integrate with the Chrome Privacy Sandbox, which is our API-based solution. Beyond that, you, of course, are starting to already see certain data gaps around your conversions, around the users that you track. Google will tap into its machine learning capabilities to mitigate for those gaps and predict potential conversions and behaviors that might be missing. As far as audiences go, we have a very robust and very strong similar audience technology that will help predict users and find lookalike users based on the insights and information you have. So remember, aggregation and consolidation is important, and getting comfortable with the idea of machine learning and modeling taking over is also important. So if we go to the next slide, keeping these principles in mind, Google is evolving Google Analytics to meet the needs of today. To explain to you what this means, let me take you back in time. Think about the late 90s where every website was a .com website. You had your dial-up connection, you'd open up your device, you'd go type a website URL, you'd browse a few pages and you were done. That was the entirety of a digital life cycle of a user online. Come back to 2022 and think about the user of today. The user practically lives online. There are constant signals being sent to your brand indicating user intent. It's no longer about Shweta's app journey or Shweta's web journey, but it's about Shweta's holistic journey with app interactions and web interactions. This is exactly the kind of analytics capability and measurement capability that Google Analytics 4 is designed to cater to. Let's dig a little deeper into that by going to the next slide. GA4 offers solutions that span across all the different areas within measurement. These areas include data collection and measurement. This is where GA4 offers a flexible and customizable means to collect and track data through the event-based model. As an advertiser slash marketer slash analyst, you get a lot of control over the information that you collect and the way you want it to be structured. The second area is to be able to analyze this data for insights. I like to say that GA4 is a smart analytics platform, and that's because machine learning is pretty much at the heart of everything GA4. Machine learning plugs into data collection, plugs into data insights, plugs into reports. So if you are a retailer, I would advise you to set up GA4 today to allow the platform to collect enough history so that our ML algorithms or our machine learning algorithms can train and customize the insights to your business needs. Moving on from analysis, the third biggest area in measurement is, of course, being able to integrate your data. It is all about consolidation and aggregation, as I had mentioned earlier. GA4 offers powerful integrations across our entire advertising and marketing platforms with very powerful capabilities, which is low effort and easy to activate for a retailer out there. Beyond the advertising and marketing platforms, there's also data import and data export capabilities. So you can plug in your third-party data, bring in that sweet customer data that you have and those insights that you have into GA4 to be able to activate on it. And the final area under measurement is, of course, activation. We do all of this so that we are able to action on it and get smarter about the way we market. Activation spans across leveraging these insights, leveraging the machine learning insights, and enabling audiences or bidding to conversions across our marketing platform. With these are the various value propositions that GA4 has to offer across the different areas of measurement. If we go to the next slide, let's put a retailer lens to it. So as the platform stands today, there are tons of exciting features that have launched across each of these areas. Most of these features are already available or are in a whitelist phase, so you can start leveraging them. Under collect and measure, you have two very durable identity spaces, that's Google Signals and User ID, which you can leverage to deduplicate and reach users across platforms. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, User ID functionality allows you to pass your own first-party identifier into our ecosystem, and that becomes the primary identity space that will be leveraged to measure users. This gives you a lot of control over consent management, over user management, and generally it's a more robust identity space to work with. Google Signals is an in-UI button that you just need to toggle on. And once you do that, you're giving Google permission to bring in all that cool consented Google user signed in insight into your GA4 platform, which will help you deduplicate users across different platforms. Under analysis for insight, we very recently announced that data-driven attribution is now the native attribution logic in GA4. This is default, so you have data-driven attribution crediting your cross-channel, cross-device data and giving you the most comprehensive insights possible. In the future, there will be capabilities to be able to action on these insights too. Under the integration section, one of the most exciting integrations that has been announced for GA4 is the integration with YouTube. YouTube is traditionally a mid-funnel or an upper-funnel channel, which does not really get its due credit when evaluated against other click-based channels. With this integration, you will be able to bring in engaged view conversions into GA4, which will level set the playing field a little bit to evaluate YouTube a bit more fairly. The other integration capability or exciting capability that exists with Google Analytics' integration with Google Ads and DV360 is the ability to bid to GA4 conversions. If GA4's comprehensive cross-channel, cross-device conversions are indeed your source of truth, you will be able to export these and be able to action and bid upon them. This helps you centralize all your conversion actions and be able to inform your bidding accordingly. And the final piece, which is the place where you actually make money off of the data and insights that you're collecting, is around activation. So the two features that I'd like to call out here is activating through machine learning. So as I mentioned earlier, GA4 is a smart analytics platform, and that translates into predictive metrics, which can then translate into predictive audiences. And these predictive metrics predict conversions, churn, as well as revenue. So you can share this across your integrations and action on them. And the final feature, which is a very exciting feature, is the BigQuery export. The GA4 to BigQuery export is available for all GA4 customers. And with this, you can bring in your GA4 data into our BigQuery engine. You can connect this with other third-party platforms. You can leverage this to enrich your data, or you can just make the GA4 data more intelligent, send it back to GA4 and activate on it. So I hope this helped you understand how Google Analytics 4 is the platform of the future and the platform for today. I hope it helped you understand how our two guiding principles, which is getting comfortable with less data, getting comfortable with machine learning and modeling, as well as trusting the first-party data you own, consolidating and aggregating it, helps with your marketing activation. With that, I will pass it on to Chinonso to walk you through a retailer's perspective on GA4.
Thank you very much, Shweta. Actually, I'm going to be building on Shweta's points for why GA4 is important in the retailer's perspective, and then we'll look at a few business use cases that we're currently working on right now and what you should be focusing on in the future. Next slide, please. So one of the many benefits that has been highlighted with GA4, as Shweta mentioned, is the data model and data collection capabilities. And just for your information, GA4 uses an event-based data model, and I'll explain why that's important. So half of all internet shopping traffic is happening on mobile devices, and this is consistent with some trends that I've noticed while working with retail data for a couple of years. In many occasions, mobile traffic has the lion's share of data that comes to the website. So why is this important? Most businesses are adopting a mobile app strategy in their business model, and GA4's flexible event model allows you to marry this data between mobile and web data so that you can see return on investment from all platforms. And it also limits the distraction from looking at data platform specific to just looking at the user journey in that entire ecosystem. Next slide, please. The next benefit that we've heard about is, it sounds plain, but the reporting structure. GA4, apart from having the standard reporting that we have in GA, you now have the ability to get to have more structured reporting in your business that are more tailored to your business needs and specifications. GA4 gives you that ability. So instead of Google defining how your report should be, the power is now given back to the analyst to define how reports should look for the organization. Now, these reports are also fast, and they are queried very fast, and even with huge amounts of data. And as Shweta mentioned earlier, they are powered by machine learning. For example, you have reports in your analysis hub that also shows you anomalies in your data when you use some advanced measuring techniques. And as a segue to the next importance, the next slide, please. Data-driven attribution and machine learning is another important thing, because one of the pain points that we had in universal analytics was the tedious work that had to be done when trying to go through the ETL process, that's extract, transform, and load process, to activate data and retarget. Not only do you have the same GMP or GCP integrations, you also have predictive analytics built into that functionality. And now you can have much better insights in your GA4 reports, or you can build smart audiences in your analysis hub. So that's it for some of the importance that we've heard. The next section that we'll talk about, next slide please, would be looking at some business use cases from what we're working on right now with clients, or things that they expect to happen with GA4, which I feel will be interesting. One of the largest food and beverage industries in the world is currently utilizing GA4's attribution and user identification features. And the goal is to better understand the acquisition points at the top of the funnel and how that translates to return on investment. They also want to be able to build more accurate personas and audiences, and this ties into the user identification features that Shweta spoke about before. So some of the key features or projects that they're working on are, user ID unification using their CRM system and Google Signals, and also consolidating the app and web data, which we spoke about previously, and then doing some advanced analysis. For example, path analysis, where they're trying to understand the impact of marketing on the user journey on their website so that they can remarket to those audiences. Next slide, please. Another interesting use case is from one of my favorite clients, Essentia. Essentia is one of the largest retail stores for outdoor sporting goods in the US. And they're looking to GA4 to help consolidate their online and offline business efforts. The goal is to be able to see the entire user journey and to be able to understand how online activity affects offline engagement. So this insight would help them improve their user experience and reduce customer churn. Apart from that, they also want to utilize an analysis hub to build custom reports that are specific to their business and things that they can control and share across the organization. Some of the features that are being utilized are measurement protocol, which is now secure in GA4, and reduces the risk of being attacked by measurement protocol spam traffic that comes to the website. Also utilizing BigQuery exports, which is supposed to have an SLA when it's released, and this would help them to make predictions in near real time, because right now in Universal Analytics, BigQuery does not have an SLA. And then being able to define all their reports in data-driven attribution. In Universal Analytics, as you have it right now, one of the pain points is that most of the reports are hard-coded to last non-direct click, but you now have the ability to set your custom event, your conversion event reports at data-driven attribution. And obviously, Analysis Hub. So the next slide would be pretty interesting, because this ties also into what Shweta and Lucas mentioned during the privacy session. So with all the privacy laws emerging, most businesses, especially businesses in the UK and the EU region, are losing access to quantitative data from non-consenting users. And this obviously impacts their ability to make informed decisions. GA4 provides features to accommodate these changes while respecting the privacy preferences of the user. And one of these features is called consent mode. Consent mode utilizes behavioral modeling to accommodate non-consenting users so that you can leverage both observed and modeled data while you're looking at your reports. And what does this mean? We're actually running a pilot with most of our clients, one of which sells pet nutrition globally. In testing, we actually observed a 10% increase in the volume of observable conversions with consent mode versus without consent mode. And this was quite insightful to the clients, because right now, with this information, they're able to better optimize their marketing campaigns in the future. A quick disclaimer is this was just a pilot, so it wasn't done on a large set of data. And also, consent mode is not fully built out. So right now, you have the observed part of the data that you can look at in your reports, but the modeled part is still something that hopefully would be available as we proceed. One of the new features that will be launched in GA4 as we proceed. And this consent mode might not necessarily be a solution for your business, because especially if you're not impacted by the privacy laws. Just wanted to share that information. So the main value here will, you'll be able to see both your observed data and the model data to make informed decisions. Next slide, please. So here we're going to be focusing on what you should be doing right now. What are our clients doing? What are we advising our clients to do? Next slide. Obviously, you need to prepare now. Change is a very daunting task for anyone, even most organizations. And Shweta mentioned this initially. So we usually advise our clients to take an iterative approach to the GA4 migration. This way, they can be able to maximize their return on investment and save costs. So what does this even mean? So using an iterative approach allows your stakeholders to learn about GA4 and enjoy the new features that will be released in GA4 as we proceed, and I'll explain. But generally, what you should be focusing on right now is dual tagging, data collection, and also seeing the big picture. And what do I mean by big picture analysis? I mean that you should start creating an environment for data integration, just like Shweta mentioned previously. And then finally, communicate this in your organization. Let people know that there's something coming for the better, and this is how we intend to have that change. And I'll dive into this as we proceed. Next slide. So with respect to dual tagging, the first step would be to take an inventory of the current events that you're tracking on Universal Analytics, and then see how that would translate to GA4. So you need to ask yourself questions like, how should events be deployed in GA4? What events do we need to migrate in GA4? What reports need to be migrated or can we build in the analysis hub that are beneficial to our business? And so many other questions. So depending on what your answer is, this process might take time, and depending on how much resources you have, this might take time or it might be a very quick process. And you can start deploying GA4 as easy as just setting up a page view to start getting historical data. And one of the benefits would be you start getting historical data, and also when new features are launched, you already have enough data to start enjoying those features. Like Shweta mentioned, GA4 has machine learning built into its functionality. So when you have more data, it starts learning about your data to give you much better insights. Next slide, please. The next would be to create an environment for data integration. So it's very important to start breaking down the silos of data that you have in your organization. So you might be collecting the same user data in different platforms, which is understandable. But you need to ask yourself questions. If I wanted to see this user, regardless of platform, if I wanted to understand this user's journey and the lifetime value of this user, is it possible for me to do that? Is it possible? And if the answer is no, you should ask yourself again, if I wanted to marry data from one platform to the other platform, is that a possibility currently? So if that's not a possibility, then you have to start building strategies that would allow you to merge this data, okay? So you have to start looking at building things like a user ID feature, a unique user ID feature across some of your platforms. And you also have to start looking at your app and your web data, if you have that as your business. How do I marry this data? In Universal Analytics currently, because we have some sort of web and app implementation, but if you have this data, you might notice some loopholes. GA4 actually helps you consolidate this data, but you have to do some work to marry this data from an event naming perspective and how you intend for that data to look when it gets into GA4. So the benefits here are that you have a focused analysis on the user and his journey, and then you have less distraction on different users and the same user in different silos. And you also have a visibility on your ROI sources, regardless of what platforms or devices the user is on. Okay? Next slide, and I think this is the final one for me before I pass it back to you, Shweta. Finally, embracing change. Like mentioned, change can be a very difficult thing to achieve in any organization. So early communication is key, especially now where features are still being rolled out. Let people in your organization know that this is something that is going to happen. GA4 is most likely going to be the new source of truth in a few months, in a year or so. And these are the things that we should start doing. When you're doing the migration plan, you would also start learning about GA4, and you can set processes in place to train your organization. Okay? So this way you have early buy into GA4, and this would help empower your stakeholders and set them up for success. And finally, when GA4 becomes the source of truth, you save cost, because that way people can easily or seamlessly transition to using GA4 and providing business value from day one. So I hope this gives you an understanding of how GA4 is being used right now and some of the things that you might want to consider doing. We're doing this with our clients right now, and most of them are already seeing the benefits. Shweta, back to you.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was super insightful. And I hope that this session helped you understand the positioning of GA4 and gave you some inspirational examples on how you can leverage it. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Shweta and Nunzo. And Nunzo, I think you made a great point with step one with dual tagging. Being on the partnerships team, that's something that I hear commonly and we talk about specifically. And not just to look at specifically Google Analytics 4, but also looking at your current universal analytics. Because at the end of the day, your analytics is your backbone. So it's imperative that you have that complete data collection in the first place with your universal analytics. So that way, when it translates over to Google Analytics 4, you already know what's in place and what you're looking for when it comes to the actual migration or the transition itself. So that's something very common that we're hearing. And you can learn more about Google Analytics 4 through Crawl, Walk, Run. But thank you both again. This has been really fun, kind of learning more about the benefits as it applies to retailers and e-commerce organizations.